Okay, so now we're in the Cobbler in Motion exhibit, and I wanted to come here just to show you this part of the exhibit without reading the description and telling you a little bit about the art, but just for you to look at the video and get your own kind of idea of what you're thinking when you're looking at the art. I always tell students there are a couple of things that they should think about. They should think about what what are they feeling when they look at the art? Maybe what was the artist trying to say? Um, what kind of emotions, when they're standing near the art, are they feeling? What's happening to the negative space around them? How do they interact with the art? Is the art moving? Is the art still? What's happening as far as the lights and the shadows on the art? Um, and also, sometimes art might have, it might not say anything. Sometimes just looking at the art might just be the idea that you're just looking at that piece of that painting on that wall, and there is nothing behind it except that. So that is a statement in itself. So when I look at art, I try to look at it from afar, and then I kind of go really close because I really want to see how the difference is from afar, looking at something very, very far and something close. I want to look at the shapes and the forms and if and how they react to each other. Something just as simple as this, like what's happening to the line formation, what's happening to the negative space. Is there a sense of movement in there? And the same for here. Is it chaotic to you? Is it peaceful? When you're looking at sculptures, I like walking around the sculpture and I like looking at the shadows. Remember, the museum has placed the sculpture in a certain area because they're trying to show all different parts. If that's the case of the sculpture, you might not be able to access the top part or the bottom. But what is that telling you? Is the sculpture grounded? Is it in the air where it's moving? Are the shadows soft, or are they harsh shadows? Can you interact with the sculpture? Every painting is having a conversation with you. What are you trying to say to the painting? What is the painting telling you about itself, about its form? And basically, this one tells a story. What is that story about? And colors also react to their environment. So this area is mostly all white, but if these walls were colored, the paintings would look quite differently. And colors react to each other. Look at this piece that's kind of all these different shades here. Some of them, the other paintings in this room are monochromatic. Look at the shades in here. Look at this space that's in between, this line that's going across, and how it divides that space and pushes it back, right? So even if you knew nothing about painting or drawing, just looking at that, you could really understand. Look at that perspective. Just something very simplistic. Look how tight this area is and how loose the other side is. Look at all that light coming through a dark area. This is really dark, right, and black, but you can see the light behind it. It's almost like it's glowing, and it looks almost like it has like tons of varnish on it, which it doesn't. Okay, so what are you trying to say about that? And sometimes it's interesting also when you see mixed media on canvas and how they relate to each other. Sometimes the frame is also part of the painting. You have to really look of how the painting not even works in the space, but how is it framed? If you're looking at famous, painters, for an example, say like a Rothko, and you're going up close at or any painting, it's good again. Let's look at it from far. Let's look at it close. And you can really see all these different colors coming through in the background, right? These two colors are basically, not the same. And they're also different sizes. What does that say about how that's on the canvas. Look how that light color at the top just pops. Look at these two forms. The top form is kind of round, but it kind of comes out of its shape. You can see the edges, they're a little bit loose. And look at the bottom of how that's just kind of free, and it could be a little bit chaotic. Look at these light forms. As far as that's just orange on the canvas, but it's painted with, some of it is mixed opaque, it has a little bit of white, some brown coming through it, and it actually looks like light coming through it, but it's not. It's just different shapes and forms. So how can you use the paint to manipulate your space, to make the light and shades change and move, to make form become constant or not? Becomes almost like a mystery. And you know, I like also, I think that this museum did really well also with dealing with this kind of virtual space and placing themes too. This is a mixed media kind of piece, and it works well within this room because it's kind of like a collage. And if you think about it, look at the paintings in here. They could be collages, even though they're just paintings. They are just one type of media. And lastly, let's look at these three panels. So we're going to go by, and you can see how they change with the space. And again, remember what I said about the negative space? And look what happens when I move the camera further away, how that color gradually changes. Also, look at this sculpture, and look how important the shadows are to it. Okay, so it's not only the sculpture, it's also the shadows. The shadows are kind of quiet. And look at the depth of that statue and the texture. And this also has a relationship to it because it's also very busy too. So it's kind of like this textural form. It's not much different, right, from the statue, except it has a little bit of color in it. Again, another landscape. Look how loose those forms are and how they go together. Look at the different shapes of how the brush is used.
Does still look like a laundrette? It's a documentary.
And this might be what we call, it might be a little bit more realistic, but it's very opaque. It's very washed with the brush. It's very loose. All of these things, if you look at this painting, and you look at that painting, and you look at that painting, okay, it goes from deconstruction to construction to more. And that's very important when you're looking at modern art, right? Because a lot of times when you're looking at things that are realistic, they're building it up. But when you're looking at something that's abstract, you have to think about how they're, you know, taking it apart, sometimes taking it apart and putting it back together. So in a different gallery now, and I don't want to make a lot of noise because there's a lot of people here, so we'll just go through very quietly. So I've always really liked this painting of Morris Graves. I mean, just look at those eyes. They're almost, you know, people talk about the Mona Lisa and how they follow you, but just look at his eyes. Look at the direction and how when we move, they're following us. Look at how this painting is, a lot of it is monochromatic. There's a lot of pink in this painting, and it changes. We can see the color coming through that beautiful linen, the layers on top. It's almost kind of abstract too with the face, right? When you're looking at those different forms, you know, kind of like if you're looking at a Modigliani and you can kind of, you know, say, okay, this is like an oval shape of the face. It's very kind of simplistic. We have a Martin Hardsley here, which I was very happy about. And they have a lot of landscapes here too. I like personally like the Ashcan School, the New York School, and the Hudson River School. But you can find a lot of different types of landscapes here in the Sam. And again, what is the painting trying to tell you? What is the story? I really like the contrast of this woman behind the yellow. It's very simple. But it makes a great statement. And this is more, pictorial, more realism. I really love this for texture. Just imagine painting this. The sky is just wonderful. Look at those strokes in the sky. Just imagine the artist doing that live with the palette knife or the brush. There's so much magic in that. Again, look at the blending. And then just this background in the area where we have the sun. I'll just show you, look at all those colors. I mean, we have greens and some yellows, and ochre, and a little bit of cad and tea white, just in those areas. Really works. And even something simplistic as this. When you do see a Georgia O'Keeffe, it's always kind of a tree. I think she does really well with the shadows. Everything is just so soft. Has so much depth. And those are just, pinks and blues. It makes such a statement. Okay, so I'll do another part of the video of the rest of the art, but now I'm going to cut this video a little bit short, and I'll see you next time at the Sam. Ciao.